kick things off. And that's not the one. Okay. All right, well, we are at the top of the hour, so I think it's time to kick things off. And so I want to welcome everyone to the Rewards Mastermind. We're a group of leaders that come together, and we're dedicated to creating those workplaces where people are thrived and thrilled to be, and where employers can reward and customers love. I often say that's very important to have these three facets: the company, the customer, and then also our coworkers, because it's an environment where we all need to thrive to be able to have a successful business. So it's important for us to keep that context. So I want to today we're broadcasting on a variety of channels. We're here on Zoom, the platform. So those that are on the Zoom, you can go ahead and ask questions. We'll try to take those during the session here. But we're also broadcasting on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you happen to be on one of those platforms listening in, feel free to leave messages or questions in the application there, and we'll come back and revisit those after the session and try to capture those questions for you. So today I would like to introduce you to our speaker today, which is Greg Roche. He is the author of the Fast and Easy Guide to Networking for Introverts. And Greg is a 12-year compensation professional in many industries such as healthcare, technology, and even real estate. And he's had a stint at Accenture where he cut his teeth. And he's also a career coach for those of us that are looking for new paths in our career and are in transition. So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you come about to write this book, Networking for Introverts?
I spent the last few years trying to help people improve their networking, their professional networking. And for me, the reason I've been doing that is I found that in my career, that's been huge in terms of my success and my ability to find new roles and move my career forward. And it really was born out of necessity, as most new things are. I, several years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago, actually lost my job. I had my position eliminated. And at the time, I didn't spend a lot of time on networking. I had been at the same company for 9 years. I hadn't really cultivated that circle of connections. And I started trying to figure out how I was going to find my next job. And I really found that, applying online and all those things that we hear don't work. They don't work. And what I found really did work was connecting with people and using a network to find my next role. And I did find a new role and promised myself I would never be in that situation again where I needed to start networking with people, as in I wanted to have a network before I needed it. And over the years, I worked on that. I tried to connect with people. I tried to keep those connections going. I tried to meet new people. And the thing about me that I think is not unique, because probably more than half of the population suffers from this, but I am a tremendous introvert. And people will sometimes be surprised by that because they'll hear me speak or they'll talk to me and they say, you don't seem like an introvert. And the fact of it is introversion isn't just, shyness. I mean, there is a bit of an aversion to talking to strangers, which is kind of how I am. I just don't like to go up to strangers and start talking to them because it just isn't comfortable for me. And so therefore networking events were something that was a non-starter for me. I would rather go to the dentist than go to a networking event. And I found a way to overcome that and still connect with people and grow my networking circle and find other opportunities. So as I did that, I started to show other people how to do that. And I did it a variety of ways. I wrote articles, I created, courses, I created some webinars, I would do some coaching groups. I started helping executives or people sort of at that director and above level find new roles when they needed to do that. And I did that through helping them grow a network. And so through all of that, I started to kind of bring all those principles and experiences together. And really last year, it was a culmination of that where I found a way that I could bring all my experience and all the things I had learned together into this book, and spent most of last year writing the book and then self-publishing and putting it out there, and have really been happy with how it came out, and how it's kind of made it really simple and clear of how, if you're if you're an introvert and you're struggling to network, but you want to try to find either business opportunities, or you just want to meet people in your industry, or if you're looking for a new job, you can start to do these things, and they don't take a lot of time. You don't have to go to events. You don't have to cold call people. You don't have to send your resume all over the world. And you can still grow a strong circle of connections to help you find opportunities to improve your life, whether it's your business life or your personal life or your career.
So Greg, I want to definitely dive into your book and those details around around networking and so forth. But first, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, and our listeners could enjoy hearing a little bit about you, how you became a comp professional and so forth, because this is relevant, because I'd have to say that comp professionals are a unique breed. You know, we are often introverts by nature, highly analytical, detail oriented people, high quality individuals, and often we're in our own world, right? And we're in the shell, and working with our numbers and so forth, and we often aren't reaching out to proactively network with each other. So tell us a little bit about how you got into comp, and how'd you find yourself there?
I think a lot of people who get into comp get there a little bit by accident. And so I generally say I got into it by accident. That's usually my response. But in reality, when I was working for a real estate investment company here in Denver, I started out really in the analytics and HRIS part of HR. So going back to my start of my career in Accenture, I was in systems implementations and requirements, and putting in processes and systems. And when I went to this company, I started out actually as a project manager, helping their operations team with some of those types of projects. And over time, there were some people that I had worked with in HR who had noticed my skills and the way I worked, and they were looking to build out their HRIS system and do some more advanced analytics and reporting around their people processes. They gave me the opportunity to move over into human resources, and it was really, again, focused on those systems and the data and the analytics. And over time, as I grew in my career and took on more things, it was one of those situations where you're in a department where they continue to give you things, and if you're successful, they continue to give you more things, and they just keep giving you things until you can't take any more things. But
Right.
the interesting thing is they never take anything away, so your role just continues to grow and grow and grow. And over time, it started out HRIS, and then it was performance management, and then I took on comp, and then benefits, and I had all those things, which was great because a lot of those things tied together, and you can see the whole total reward space coming together, tied in with performance management, enabled by the systems. It was really a great role for me to move forward in my career. And as I got into it, I really started to learn compensation. I learned about the principles of compensation, why you do things why you do what you do, why there's certain things you don't want to do, and had some really great mentors who were, interestingly enough, not necessarily more senior in their career, but mentors who were either, my colleagues or who were on the comp team who had been working in it for a while. So a lot of times we think of, again, more experienced people teaching us, but in this case, I was leading a team, and I had my analysts and my managers who were kind of teaching me some of the fundamentals of comp. And that doesn't happen a lot, but that's another way to do it too. And I think in total rewards, one of the strange things is you see people in comp or you see people in benefits. Very seldom do they cross over, but if you can ever get that opportunity to lead both teams, even if you're not an expert, I think that's a great thing to do. If you have that opportunity, and if you're in comp and you're a comp expert and somebody says, hey, could you lead the benefits team? Provided you have people that can do the day-to-day and know it, I would recommend you take that opportunity to grow there, because like I said, there's very few people that cross both of those and can run that whole function. But that happened for me. I was lucky that way. And as I got, better and more in depth with comp and benefits, my later roles moved on to, sometimes I was just running the compensation function. And sometimes I went into an organization and they said, you're going to be a benefits leader. And then 6 months through, their compensation leader left. And so they said, could you take over comp? And so then I, would take over comp. Sometimes they would say, we need the total rewards leader. And so again, like I said, it's good if you have that opportunity to not be afraid of one or the other, whichever side you're on, and really dive into that and kind of learn how to bring it all together in a total rewards framework.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, having all those different experiences where you go into different teams and you meet different people. I mean, it creates a lot of opportunity, and I know we're going to discuss more about that. But first, as we're talking about networking, there's introverts and extroverts, and so how is the process of networking different for these two groups?
Yeah, like I said before, an extrovert, and I'm married to an extrovert, so it's interesting because I'll watch the way she interacts with a room of people, and my wife, who she actually is a musical theater actress and a singer, and so she can not only get on stage, but her whole life is basically kind of on stage. She'll go into a room and she can just talk to people right away. She can strike up a conversation, and before she leaves the room, she's friends with everybody. And that gives her energy, that makes her feel great. That's who she is, that's her personality. On the complete opposite end, I go into a room full of people, I try to find the nearest corner, back myself into it, and just hope somebody will come over and start talking to me. And as far as networking is concerned, that makes it really hard, pre-COVID, to go into any networking event. I tried multiple times, even conferences. I mean, I would go to conferences where I was one of the speakers. I was speaking on a topic. So, people had seen me up on stage. I had just given a 45-minute talk, and I would go to the reception afterward, and I still couldn't find anybody to talk to. I just couldn't strike up the conversation. I'm like, I should have the total in here to have the conversation. And the fact of the matter is, if you're just an introvert and you resign yourself to that, you're never going to create a network. But what I found over time was, if I know somebody or if I've got something in common, I can have a very, fulfilling and beneficial one-on-one conversation with them. And it's not in a room, it's either on the phone or it's sitting down to coffee, or it's just kind of an in-person conversation that we can start talking, and I can find a lot of things in common. And I'm one of the things about introverts is we're really good listeners. And I find that when you're interacting with a person one-on-one, whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, people love it if you will listen to what they're saying. I mean, people love to talk about their favorite topic. And this is something I tell my students is, everybody has the same favorite topic. It's themselves. I mean, their favorite topic is themselves. And that's not because they're selfish. That's not because they're egotistical. It's just, that's the one thing they know the most about is themselves. And if you ask somebody about themselves and then you just listen to them talk, they're going to probably share a lot of things with you, like what they're working on, what they're struggling with, what they could use help on. And if you just sit there and listen, you can pick up on things, and you start to have ideas of, oh, I could help this person with, meeting somebody new. I could help them because I've solved that problem before. And if anything else, if you can't give them an idea or an introduction to stuff, you giving them your attention. If you think about the people you talk to and the people you really enjoy talking to, aren't they the ones that give you their attention? That they're full undivided attention. They're not on their phone. They're not, looking around elsewhere. They're giving you their attention. Those are the people you want to be around. So if you're an introvert and you're talking to people and having some conversations with them, and you're the one listening and you're giving them your attention, they're going to want to talk to you more. They're going to think of you as somebody they trust. They're going to think of you as someone they have a relationship with. So that's always something advice I give is when you're meeting with people, you're talking with people, you're connecting with people, be the one that asks the other person about themselves, listen to what they've got going on, And if you can't give them anything else, just give them your attention, and they're going to see you as somebody that they're going to want to interact with over and over again. So I think that's where the difference is. And that, again, not to say that an extrovert can't listen, because they can. As I said, my wife listens to me all the time, but it's really a key skill for introverts to have and think about. And it's actually a superpower for introverts. You don't think of it as a weakness. Think of it as a superpower that you can give your attention to somebody and really listen to them.
Mhm.
And I think that becomes sort of the foundation for the relationship. And that's really what networking is. It's creating relationships that are beneficial to both people. And these are deep professional relationships. So that's what you're going for with networking, is to create the relationship. That should be your end goal, not I need to find a new client, I need to find a new job, or I need to get an answer to my question. Yes, those are all outcomes that can come out of the relationship. But your goal in networking is to try to build those deep professional relationships. That only comes through talking in person, whether it's video or voice, or if you can actually get together in person now, and listening and thinking about how you can help the other person.
Right. Well, a lot of times I mean, if we're in a career transition, we have to think about networking in a more purposeful way, right? So if you're like you have a job or a company that it's on your target list that, hey, I would love to work at Apple or Google or whatever that company may be, and there's certain people that we need to network with to help us perhaps find an opportunity there. And so and that's a little bit different, right? When you're targeting a particular individual. I mean, if you're walking into a room and you're kind of looking around and saying, okay, who can I talk to? And that's one thing. You're looking for somebody that's receptive. But sometimes when you're looking to network for a purpose, for a new position, I mean, that person may not be willing to be interrupted or wanting to be interacted with and so forth. So how do you break through that barrier? What are the things that you can do?
Yeah. So you highlight the big problem with networking to find a job when you need a job. And so this isn't going to help anybody right now that's looking for a job. I'll move on to that in a second. But that's why I am talking about this all the time. And I try to connect with people and say, you need to network before you need your network, right? You need to prepare for this. And one of the things about my book is, in my book, all the chapters start with one of Aesop's fables. And so that's how I structured it, because I think that's timeless wisdom that we still have and everybody can relate to. And one of them is the ant and the grasshopper. And in the fable of the ant and the grasshopper, the ant is busy all the time storing food for the winter. And the grasshopper in the summertime is sitting around enjoying the sun, not working, and asking the ant, why are you working so hard? Come have fun. And the ant just keeps working. And then the winter time comes and the ant has food and the grasshopper is starving. And the point is, you need to prepare for the days of necessity before they get here. And so that's why I think people generally think about, I need to network when I need a job. I try to tell people there's a lot of other reasons to network, and we can get to those in a second. But specifically on the job front, start now. Even if you're happy with your job, even if you love your boss, even if you're paid well, even if you can't imagine working in another place, start networking, because things happen, right? Companies get purchased and acquisitions happen. And then sometimes your job changes. Sometimes your boss that you love gets a dream opportunity and moves on, and you get a new boss, and maybe you don't see eye to eye. You don't know what's going to change. So you need to be prepared, and your network is going to be what I call your career insurance. It's going to be that group of people who make sure you can continue on in your career if something changes and you need to make a change. But that's the first part, is do it in advance. But if you're in that situation right now and you do need to find a job and you don't have a lot of time, I think one of the things people forget about is, especially if they've been working for a number of years, is you have a network already. And you probably don't think about it, but you have worked with a lot of people over the years. And those may be direct people that were on your team. They could be bosses. They could be other leaders in your organization. They could even be vendors that you've maybe interacted with in the past that you might have worked with or you might not have, but they've called on you over time, and maybe you it wasn't the right time to sign up with them. But you have all these people, and I think that's the thing that job seekers need to do, is go back through everybody you've worked with, or who's worked at the company you've worked at, or who you've interacted with, and really start with that list and reconnect. And so this is a theory of what's called dormant ties. And it was highlighted. I learned about it first in a book by Adam Grant called Give and Take. So Adam Grant, he's a Wharton professor. He's really prolific in terms of writing and putting out a lot of organizational books on organizational design and leadership. But in that book, he talks about dormant ties that was really based on a study that they did at MIT, where they asked executives to reach out to people they'd worked with in the past. And before they did that, the executives said, well, I only think like about 10% of these people or 20% of these people will respond to me because I haven't talked to them in years. And they wrote emails and letters and made phone calls to these people. And what they found was their response rate was huge. These people responded and said, hey, great to hear from you. I haven't talked to you in a while. What's going on? And through those conversations, they were able to find a lot of good suggestions and ideas for problems that they were working on. But the point of it is the dormant ties. When you're networking, if you just go to a networking event and you're meeting a stranger, they don't know you, they don't trust you, they don't know who you are, but your dormant ties have worked with you before. So they know you. They're going to know your name when it pops up in their email box, or when you call them and say, hey, this is Greg Roche, they're going to say, oh, I remember Greg, I worked with him. And you may not have worked a lot together, but they're going to know your name, and you've already overcome that hurdle of being able to kind of get past somebody's guard of this stranger's trying to talk to me. And so that's a good place to start. And when I call it reconnect with people, because you already know these people, you can already, again, get past that sort of suspicion, and maybe there's already some trust there. And when you say, hey, here's what I'm looking for, here's what my situation is, I'm currently looking around, you're just trying to let them know what's going on. Now, as I said before, this is a two-way street, right? So when you reconnect with these people, yes, you're looking for a job, but you also want to go into it with like, hey, I'm kind of looking around for opportunities. I was just wondering what have you been working on? And again, let them talk, and you're listening to them, and you're saying, well, what kind of value could I add? And they may not have a job, and they may not be able to refer you to somebody, but you're now at the top of their mind. And as things come along and they hear of opportunities and stuff, they're going to think of you first because you just talked to them, and they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, I know you were looking for this job. We talked like 3 weeks ago. Are you still looking for a job? Here, I can introduce you to this person. So that's really when somebody's going out to look for a job and they need it right now. Start with who you already know, reconnect with those dormant ties, start up the conversation again, and keep going, and be easy to help, right? So a lot of times in this job search situation, people say, well, let me send you my resume and you can give it to somebody. I don't know about anybody else on this, but if somebody gives me their resume, here's what's going to happen, right? And this is not because I'm lazy or don't want to help people. I want to help people as much as I can. But if you give me your resume and you say, hey, can you give it to somebody at your company? I've got to figure out what position is it for? Who's the recruiter, the hiring manager? When can I get this to them? Like, how am I going to tell them that I know you? Like, there's all these sort of barriers that start to become, get in the way, all these obstacles that pop up. And I may never get around to that. But if you say, hey, could you connect me with somebody, right? Or hey, I found this position. This is the person who it's reporting to. Can you connect me to that person? And you just send a quick email. It's like, hey, would love to connect you with Greg, and here's what Greg's looking for. Maybe you guys can talk. Now, true, that person may never, they may never get back to the other person, but it's a whole heck of a lot more likely that you're going to connect to people who can then help each other out. And that's being easy to help. That's a whole lot easier than giving somebody your resume and saying, hey, give this to recruiting. So I always tell people be easy to help, and being easy to help is being as specific as possible. So even if you don't know what job you want, you have that list of target companies, which you just talked about, which is very important in the job search. What is your list of target companies? That's going to be something that if you give to one of your connections and you say, hey, I like these companies, I'd love to learn more about them. They might look down and go, oh, I know Sam works at this company. I can totally introduce you to Sam. And now that person's doing it for you, basically, like doing all the work of getting you in the door. And then when Sam gets Greg's information, he goes, oh, I got it from Bob, and Bob's a friend of mine. I trust Bob. If Bob says Greg's a good guy, then I should talk to Greg. There you go, connection made, and you go from there. So if you don't have that list, you're asking your contact to rack his or her brain for every person they know. It's really hard. The list provides an anchoring point. It primes their memory. It gets them thinking about people they know, and basically, helps them sort through the mental Rolodex. For anybody who still remembers what a Rolodex is, they'll sort through that mental Rolodex and find somebody to introduce you to. So those are a couple of things, I think, that are helpful for job seekers, and things that I've found have worked really well, both for me and for other people that I've worked with that did a few of these things. And I know when you're listening to this, you're like, man, that sounds like too simple. It sounds like it's not going to work. It doesn't seem complicated enough. And what I've really found is when people try to do these things, they'll come back and they're like, I never thought something that simple would actually work. So those are the kind of stories I like to hear is from people who come back to me and tell me those kind of things.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that a little bit more, because when we're talking about reconnection, what are the rules of engagement? I know that a lot of people listening out there are HR professionals, comp professionals. They overanalyze a lot of things. They come up to this and say, well, geez, things have changed. I can't just pick up the phone. That's kind of rude. Maybe I should send a text message or find them on social media. What is the rules of engagement?
Well, first and foremost, I think you're right. We do overthink this and we overanalyze it. Whenever I feel like reaching out to somebody, or I'm going to do something on LinkedIn, maybe I'm going to write a post, or maybe I'm going to comment on somebody's post, I always think, oh, is this person going to be annoyed that I did this? Or is this, and we're probably all on LinkedIn. We probably all get the sales messages, right? We get the hey, thanks for connecting, and right away hit you and pitch you up for a sales thing. But you're not going to be doing that, right? Even if you connect on LinkedIn, and so let's take a scenario where you're going to go back and you're going to look and search LinkedIn for people who have worked at a company you worked at in the past, right? You can actually go to LinkedIn and search your connections and go to past company and put the company's name in there, and it'll bring up you a list of all people who have that in their profile. And you go through that, and you'll be, number one, you're going to be surprised, because there's going to be some people you forgot about. And you say, oh yeah, I remember that person. I haven't talked to him in a while. I remember that person. And maybe you're already a first degree connection with them, so you can send them a message. Or if they're a second degree connection, you can connect with them. And I back to what I said before, I really tell people not to overthink this. What are you more likely to respond to? If somebody sends you a page-long message in LinkedIn of here's my life story of the past 3 or 4 years, or something that says hey, I was going through my LinkedIn, saw your profile, realized we hadn't talked in a long time, would love to catch up and find out what's going on with you now. Provided that you did know the person and they know you, they're likely going to be hey, great to connect, would love to talk more. Or they might be hey, things are well, that's it, right? So maybe they're not falling all over themselves to talk to you. But more than likely, most people are going to be yeah, and you'll be surprised how many people says, oh yeah, I thought of you too. Amazingly, everybody thinks of each other when they've just been prompted. But yeah, how are you doing? What's going on? And so I just say rules of engagement, keep it really simple, keep it really light and short, and don't lead with hey, I need help, right? Hey, I'm looking for a job, I need help. Lead with the hey, let's connect and start talking again. Mm-hmm. Usually somebody will say, yeah, great to hear from you. I've been working at this place for whatever, or things are going really well, or I moved, or I got a new job, or, the family's doing great, all those kind of things. And then you can start the back and forth on the LinkedIn message. But what I tell people is once you've kind of got a signal that this person's engaged, you're having a bit of an online conversation, you need to get offline. You need to get into a phone conversation or a video conversation, or if you, again, can get back together in person, see if they got time for, quick coffee, right? The coffee meeting is kind of a little bit cliche, but that's what we do. We we go to coffee and we talk over what's going on. But if you can't do that, at least get together on a voice-to-voice conversation, because then you can have a deeper conversation. You can hear the person's voice, or maybe you can see their face if you're doing a video call, and you can really start talking more about, what's going on, and you start to build more of a professional relationship there. So once you get offline, you can kind of take it from there. And like I said earlier when it started, is you're really just there to find out what's going on with the other person and figure out how you can help them. And the reason why I say that is because people feel, one of the big objections about networking is there's really like three of them. Is number one, I don't know anybody. Number two, I don't have time. And number three, I kind of feel awkward or sleazy or salesy if I'm networking, right? So we already talked about I don't know anybody. You do know people, you have dormant ties, reconnect. We can come back to I don't have time. But number three is I feel awkward. It feels like I'm asking for things. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. I hate it when people hit me up on LinkedIn and ask me to buy their product. The way you get over that feeling is to come into this with a giving mindset. So that's why you're listening. That's why you're looking for what are they struggling with? What could they use help with? So let's use a compensation example. So let's pretend you want to network with other compensation professionals. You're already comp professionals. Maybe you've worked with them before, or maybe you met them at the Total Rewards Association group, or you met them at a conference, or you've connected with them on LinkedIn because they had compensation in the title. And you say, what are you working with on? What are you struggling with? So they're saying, well, we have this problem with our, the merit process is fine, but we struggle because we try to generate like a confirmation statement, but it's really hard, and we're like mail merging, and then we're like sending it out, and it's a challenge. Like, how have you dealt with that before? Or they may not even say, how have you dealt with it before? They may just say, hey, it's a big pain, it's administrative, my team doesn't, it takes a lot of work. That's just one example that's recent, right? And so you say, oh, okay, great. And you're thinking, you're like, do I know anybody who's solved that problem? Do I know of a tool that could fix that? Do I know someone I could recommend them to, somebody to introduce? Do I have a way I've solved the problem? And then you give that to them. You give them the introduction, you give them the recommendation, you give them the solution. You say, here's what I've done in the past. And so as you do that, they're gonna be like, wow, this person really is helping me out. We connected, and I thought they were going to ask me for help, but they've really provided a lot of value. So, man, we have this human tendency of reciprocity. What can I do? I feel like I owe them. Right? We don't like the debits and credits to be off. We want to be square with everybody. So what can I give back to you? And that's when they're going to say, well, what can I do for you? And you say, well, I'd really love to meet somebody who's made the transition from comp into benefits. I'd really like to meet somebody who solved, has an LTI plan that they put in place. Whatever it is, maybe it's knowledge, or maybe it's like, hey, I just want to get introduced to a CHRO somewhere else because maybe I'm thinking of making a change. And then that person goes, oh, well, I know this person, I'll do the introduction. So I think that's how you get around that feeling awkward or salesy, or I don't want to network because I don't want to ask people for things, is if you give first, you're going to feel better about it. And secondly, they're probably going to volunteer to help you, and they're not going to let it go until they've actually helped you, because again, they want to return the favor so that they don't feel like they're in debt to you in some way, whether it's, it's obviously not literal debt, but like karmic debt. They're going to want to make sure that they even up the scales.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the other factor you mentioned, time. I mean, is there, we started off this conversation saying that networking is something that we should do on a daily basis. It's something that we should do before we need it. Mm-hmm. And but we know that a lot of times with human nature, people they will go out and they'll do a big old spurt when they're in crisis or they need it, and then they drop off the face of the planet when they don't. And so is there a cadence that you recommend, or a process for networking that we should be thinking about on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, a couple things. Whenever I run into somebody who says, I don't have time to network, or I don't have time to do anything, whether it's I don't have time to read, I don't have time to write, I don't have time to work out, I don't have time for my family, I don't have time for my job. Anytime somebody says, I don't have time, my challenge back to them is I say, okay, I want you to change what you just said. And instead of saying, I don't have time, say, it's not a priority.
Hmm.
So I don't have time to work out. It's not a priority to work out. Is that still true? Do you really value your physical health? Would you like to feel better and be in better shape? Everybody's going to say yes. But when they say, I don't have time, they're saying it's not a priority. Now, they may say, I have other things that are more important. So yes, it's not a priority. So therefore, working out is not a priority. So when it comes to networking, people say, I don't have time to network. I say, okay, say it's not a priority to network. It's not a priority to network. Okay, so you don't want to have a network before you need it. You don't want to have, people you can connect with. You don't want to be able to find knowledge from your colleagues that you've networked or potential people you could hire to your team, or you don't want to build your career insurance policy so that you have a job if you were to lose this one. That's not a priority. And usually people are like, no, it is. I just struggle. I can't find, I don't know where to fit it in my day, right? And I will say, okay, fair enough. We've established it's a priority. Now the challenge is, I don't know where to fit it in my day. And again, what I would go back to is we all get 1,440 minutes a day. So 60 minutes times 24 hours is 1,440 minutes a day. If you spend 1% of your day on anything, that's about 15 minutes. Right? So 15 minutes is 1% of your day. Can you spend 1% of your day connecting with one person who you might have lost touch with? Do you think you can connect with one person in 15 minutes? And usually people will say, yeah, I probably could figure that out. I could figure out the person I want to connect with. I could find their email, or I could connect with them on LinkedIn. I could send them a short message. I could probably do that in 15 minutes a day. It's like, that's all you got to do. Spend 15 minutes a day. Now, the key is that you don't spend 15 minutes on Monday and then 0 minutes Tuesday through Sunday. This is something that consistency is important here, meaning that if you show up every day for 15 minutes and you do this, then you will start to get responses and people will say, let's have conversations. And maybe that conversation is more than 15 minutes. That's fine. You'll find time to have that conversation. Or they'll say, hey, I want to introduce you to this person, or hey, can you sit down and talk to this person? Or hey, so-and-so wants to talk to you and interview you. Then of course you're going to spend more time there. But the key is just take that 1% of your day and focus on connecting with one person. Now, if you sit down for 15 minutes and you connect with 3 people, great, that's awesome, right? If you sit down and 15 minutes has gone by and you are in flow, you've hit that flow state where you're like, I could keep going, right? Or if you have a meeting at the bottom of the hour, then you go for 30 minutes. But the key is to get started, spend a little bit of time, do it every day. And so some of the key things you can do in that span of time, you can find one person to connect and send a message to. You can go on to LinkedIn, and I talk about LinkedIn a lot, and I think we all understand LinkedIn. It's there to network, it's there to connect, it's there to share things. It's not the only way to connect, but again, we're talking about professional settings. You could do the same thing either on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, any social network, but those tend to be more focused on your personal life. So maybe you want to get together with your friends from high school and reconnect with them. That's great. Do it through Facebook or do it through through Instagram or whatever. But I tend to focus on LinkedIn just because we are talking about our careers and more sort of professional settings. But you can get on there in 15 minutes and I will tell people literally set a timer for 15 minutes, right? You set that timer, that's go time. You can work until the timer stops, right? You don't have to work any time past the timer. As soon as it stops, you can stop. And get on there and start reading through some people's posts. And they may be somebody you follow or you like, or maybe it's somebody that you're lost connection with and they write something. Go leave a comment, a thoughtful comment, not something like great post or I agree or hey, awesome. Say something that adds to the conversation. Hey, I really agree with this, and here's how it happened in my life, or here's what I've found, or I've heard something similar to this. Put it on there and add to the conversation. Now you think, well, why does that have anything to do with networking? Well, what it does is it gets other people seeing your engagement. People, maybe the person you responded to will send you a message and be like, hey, I really appreciate your comment. Would love to talk to you more. That's networking. Or somebody else sees it and goes, hey, that person, Greg, I noticed that it says total rewards leader in his headline because that shows up when you comment. I would love to talk to him about this problem, or I have a job, or I have an opportunity. And then they ping you and they say, hey, they usually don't say, hey, do you want to talk about this job? They say, hey, do you know anybody who might be good for this job? And you're like, it fits my profile exactly. So I'm going to be a little bit like, oh, let me think. I mean, I might be, you could send it over to me and I'll take a look. But I think that's something you can do in 15 minutes a day too, is comment there. You can start to write a post on LinkedIn, right? And again, these are all things to get people to see what you're doing and what you can do. And then if they're reaching out to you, you apply the same principle, right? You try to get offline, have this conversation, be easy to help. But the last part of my book, the last fable, and it's not surprising, is the tortoise and the hare. It's the story we've all heard, right? That the hare runs out in the race, runs really fast, and then kind of, gets tired and takes a nap. And the tortoise is the one that just keeps going, just keeps plodding along. And so think of this as something that you're going to want to be the tortoise in that story. You're going to want to show up every day and you're going to plod along. And it's not going to be exciting. It's not going to be sexy. Some days you're going to connect with some people and they're not going to respond back. And then all of a sudden, one day, you're going to get about 3 different messages saying, hey, I would love to talk to you. You're going to have people reaching out saying, hey, I want to connect you. Hey, I have this opportunity for you. And it always seems to all hit at the same time. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to manage this. But you can control that by the number of people that you're connecting with. So again, I think, how do you do it? How do you keep going? How do you make it happen over time? You got to figure out a way to be the tortoise in that story. Make it a habit. Figure out a way to build it into your day so that it's something that you're always doing. And then before you know it, you're going to be, this network's going to grow, and you're going to be like, well, where did all these people come from? So I think that's really how we show up each day, and how we focus on it. And then as you do that, when you need it, when you have to activate that network, when you have to suddenly, talk to people about maybe a new opportunity, you got a bunch of people, you're top of mind, you reach out to them and they go, oh yeah, Greg has helped me so much over the years. I would love to help him out. And it starts to happen for you. So, I mean, personally, my own story, just to illustrate this a little bit, I've lost my job twice. And I talk about this in the book too. But the first time I lost my job, it took me 3 months to find a job. And I didn't have a network. And so 3 months isn't bad. I mean, honestly, especially today, I mean, I'm not saying that it was a long, terrible 3 months. So it wasn't. 3 months isn't bad. But at the time, I was freaking out. I didn't know it was going to be 3 months. I was like, this thing who knows how long this is going to take. So the second time, and I kind of, had the network, I had been keeping it going. I'd been talking to people on and off. The second time it happened, I left my job I was leaving, or where my position was eliminated, and I was starting like in the next job, or I had my offer from a next job in 3 weeks. So I turned months into weeks by having my network in place. And is that going to happen for everybody? No, but it's definitely going to shorten the time between, when you've left one job and landed at the new one. So, and that only happened because I had the network there. It wasn't hard to get those relationships going, and I was able to find a new role and land in that very quickly.
Let's just, if you don't mind, let's go back to the concept of persistence. You mentioned that so what happens if I send out an email, if I send out a text, or through Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and I don't get any feedback? I mean, and that happens more than once. I mean, how should I feel about that?
Well, I would say if you put one email out there and you haven't heard back one day, so you set aside your 15 minutes, you do that, you send it, and you don't hear back, I would say that's normal. I mean, have you ever gotten an email that you put in your follow-up items or left in your inbox and you responded to like 2 or 3 weeks later? I mean, I always try to tell people, like, flip this around and pretend you're the one getting this, and you're like, well, I need to respond to this email, and then you're busy. You know, you don't get to it right away. So I think that's okay. I mean, I think what I would say is then show up the next day and send an email to another person, and keep doing that. I mean, if you think about growing a garden, and again, I use this metaphor a lot too. If you put one seed in the ground and walk away, how likely is it that you're going to get a plant that grows out of that, right? So we grow cucumbers in our garden, and you never just put one seed in the ground and hope you're going to get a cucumber plant. I mean, we actually don't put seeds; we get the plants. But I mean, we have to get like 5 cucumber plants, and only like 3 of them will survive. So you have to plant a lot of seeds, right? You have to keep going and plant those seeds. Now, back to what I was saying before, somebody may come back you may have given up on them. You may have said they're not going to respond. And like 3 weeks later, like, oh, hey, so sorry. I've been completely busy. I've been swamped. I've been meaning to get back to you. Would love to talk to you. So I would just say, don't give up and keep going. Now, if you keep doing that for a while and you're not getting anything, I would ask, like, number one, who are you connecting with? And do you really know these people? Right? I mean, do you actually know this person and have a relationship with them? If you're like, well, they were the COO at my company, so I connected with them. Well, you know, if you were had your first job, entry-level job, the COO, I hate to say it, likely doesn't know who you are. I mean, at least they may have seen your name on an employee list or something, but they don't know who you are. So I would say that's kind of the first thing. But if you do know them and you feel like they likely would respond, I would just say, what are you sending them, right? Are you be like, hey, I'm out of work, I'm looking for a job, what can you do to help? It's a little strong. It's a tough message, and somebody who gets that is going to be like, wow, I would really love to help Greg, but I don't really know of anything, and I'm not really sure what he's looking for. So I'm going to have to put this one on the side and worry about it later. So I think what are you sending them? And also, again, back to, you might send them something and they don't respond, and you can follow up and be like, hey, I just really wanted to connect. I saw you hadn't responded yet. I'm sorry if I was bothering you. I would just really like to connect and get back in touch. A lot of times people will be like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. Let's get back in touch. So I think there's a couple things. I mean, it's like, do you really know the person? Would they recognize your name? Would there be a reason for them to connect with you? What are you asking them for? Is it too much too soon? Like right off the bat, because you haven't given them anything, you haven't given them a reason to respond back. And again, 3, maybe give it a little bit of time. Don't panic and keep showing up each day and keep networking. Those are some things I would say if somebody feels like it's not really working that well for them. But most of it is persistence. Most of it is showing up. Most people don't do that. I mean, very few people are going to be doing this all the time. I try to think of it like this, and this is a quote I heard recently, it goes to persistence. It goes to small steps. I'm a big fan of doing small incremental things over time. But came from James Clear. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits, so it's all about habits. But he says, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour, meaning the empire came to be over time because they spent every day putting down the bricks and laying the foundation and building the buildings. You can't expect to have the empire if you don't spend each day doing the little things to build up to it over time. And so that's just, I really think about that whenever I'm like, well, what should I do? What do I need to work on? How do I need to focus? It's like, just lay bricks. And that's great unless you're playing basketball. I mean, I've heard people say, hey, that's not a good thing if you're a basketball player. But I think it's a good thing for pretty much everything else. A good way to think about it, that like, what bricks am I going to put down today that's going to help me in the future?
That's great. Thanks, Greg. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour, so I just want to invite our participants. If you have any questions for Greg, go ahead and drop those in the chat. I have a few that have been popping up online. So here's one, Greg. I know we've been talking a lot about LinkedIn, but are there other tools that people can use for networking outside of LinkedIn?
Well, I think, like I said, any social media where you're connecting with people, I think is a good tool you can use. I think for connecting, you can use your inbox. I mean, I don't know how many people keep contact lists anymore in their email. If you're trying to find people who worked at certain companies before, I know there's some email tools out there. I can't tell you the exact name of them, but if you were like, email search tools, there's like Mail Scoop It or something like that. There's things out there that if you were trying to find somebody's email address, you could go put in the company and their name, and it's going to use the email conventions as they know it to try to come up with the email address. Like if you can't find that, to connect with them, if you can't find them on LinkedIn, that's another way to go about doing it. I think, one of the tools you can use is just your own memory of, if you've worked somewhere, think about where your office was, think about walking around the office, like mentally, who were the people that were there, and try to remember their names. Because again, sometimes we just move on and we forget all those people. And those people don't necessarily work at that company anymore. They've gone on to other companies. So I think any of those sort of online searches for people who work in companies, and maybe they're executives, and maybe you didn't know the executives, but if you did, you can find out where they work now. Google the person's name, kind of find out where they're working, see if you can get some contact information. Those are going to be maybe more long shots, because if you don't already have their contact info or aren't really confident in it, you probably don't know them very well. But you can certainly try those. I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? I mean, the worst thing that could happen is somebody doesn't respond. I mean, from your standpoint of connecting, because you may send an email to somebody and they're like, delete. I mean, how you've probably done that a ton of times. People you don't know send you emails, you just delete them. They don't put your name on a list and actively hunt you down and say, I can't believe you tried to connect with me. I mean, nobody does that, right? They just delete it. So if that happens, okay, it's sometimes, you take a chance, and sometimes it pays off. I think some other things are anywhere you can share your knowledge and show your value is helpful, right? So if you can either write on a platform, if you don't have your own website, there's things like Medium where you can write articles, or maybe you don't want to write articles, maybe you just want to answer questions. There's like Quora, which is like a Google-based question and answer thing, and you can go in and put in your topic. Like if you went in and said compensation or human resources, there's all these questions people ask, and you can answer them. And I mean, are you going to connect with anybody that's going to give you a job? I don't know, but you can at least start to have a conversation with people and maybe build your sort of online presence there. So there's different places. I mean, I feel like you have to kind of start to show what you can do. LinkedIn's the best place, I think, because that's what it's focused. People are going to find job seekers or people who are professionals. But if you do it in one of these other online platforms, that's another good place to kind of build your community or your brand around what you do. So those would be some other things. And again, once you've connected online, all this stuff applies, right? It's the same thing. Connect online, have a conversation offline, then go through the whole process again. It doesn't matter if the person's not in the same city as you are. I mean, now everybody's working remotely, so it's okay to connect with people who are all over the country or maybe all over the world. And maybe you can help them out, and maybe they have a job for you or a business opportunity or a contract opportunity. It's just you've got to be out there, and you've got to be kind of putting yourself and your expertise out there. And you don't necessarily have to have your own website or your own company or anything to do that. There's a lot of places you can do that today.
Great. Well, we one more. Let me just check this question here. So do you have tips for asking someone to write you a recommendation? Can you speak to both LinkedIn and otherwise?
I mean, I think what comes to mind is, number one, again, make sure they know you, right? Do they know you well enough to do this? If they don't, you probably should find somebody else. But provided they do, again, let's go back to being easy to help. If you want somebody to write you a recommendation, and I've had people do this before, for when I've asked them, here's what they've said to me. Tell me the exact things you want me to highlight. Now, you're not lying. You're not giving them the words that they wouldn't already say, but you're saying, here's where we work together or how we know each other, right? Here's how you interacted. So if somebody said, write me a recommendation, I would say to them, here's the things I would like you to write back to me and tell me, what did we work on together, right? And how did we interact? Who did you work for? What did you do on the team? What sort of characteristics or results or outcomes did you achieve that I would know about, right? Like remind me what you did and how we worked together, so that when I write it, I go, I worked with Greg on this project at this company, and he was reporting into this team. And one of the things we worked on was this implementation project. And what I really noticed about Greg was that he was always on time with everything. He gave me constant updates, and his follow-up was great. Provide as much as you can. And again, I'm not telling you to make it up. Please don't make it up. Be authentic, be real, because the person who you're asking is basically going to have to vouch for you, and they're putting their own reputation on the line. So give them honest things. But again, who knows you better than yourself? Your contact's going to remember you, but they're not going to remember all the details. They're too busy thinking about themselves, right? And again, not selfish or egotistically. That's just how we function. So give them as much as you can to make it easy so that they can write that recommendation. And I would also say, if you really want them to do it and you want to get recommendations, go write them first, right? Find the person who you remember working with, and maybe you can say to them, hey, I'm working on, creating recommendations and trying to recognize some of the people I've worked with in the past, or I really have been thinking about people I've worked with before. I'd love to write a recommendation for you. So can you tell me a few things, what would be helpful? Here's what I remember. And then they go, oh, great, wow, thanks for the recommendation. Can I write one for you? Yep, exactly. Here's what I would love for you to say. Remember, we worked on these things together. And then you both helped each other. And you didn't even have to ask. You went in and you offered it first. So again, going back to come into this, if you want to get something, you're going to want to try to give something in advance, and then the asking takes care of itself.
Great. Well, thanks, Craig. And as we covered a lot of things, I want to share with everyone about your book. And if they would like to explore more and learn more about your book, you can find it here on Amazon. And then also, Greg, go ahead and tell us how people can learn a little bit more about you and the services that you provide.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend anybody who's watching this, please go to LinkedIn and search me out, Greg Roche. I'm in Denver. It says Total Rewards Leader in my profile and author of the Fast and Easy Guide to Networking for Introverts. Please connect or follow me or send me a message. Would love to hear what you're struggling with or what you're working on. That's a good place to start. Also, my website, gregsroche.com. So my middle initials in there. So it's Greg, S as in Sam, Roche.com. You can see everything that I've been writing, been working on. I do some speaking. So my videos of some of the speeches I've given are there. I also have my blog up there as well, and then information about the book. So anything you see there. Right now I don't have any coaching groups going on, but sometimes I will run those, and I'll do either, I will do individual coaching if somebody's interested in that. Just contact me through my website and we can set that up. Or if you're interested in a group coaching program, send me an email about that too. And if I've got 4 or 5 people that are really interested in doing that, we could do that for like 4 weeks. One time a week we'd get together, and you'll be working on things in between those weeks and trying to get your network started and growing there. So again, the website or LinkedIn is the best place to interact with me. And even if you just have a question, or you're like, hey, I'm struggling with this one thing, please send it to me. I'm always happy to help. I've had people ask me questions all the time, and I give them as much information as I can and try to help them out and help them be successful.
Well, great. Thanks, Greg. It's been a pleasure talking to you again, and it's always a way to get your expertise on this topic. And thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Sam, so much. Really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from anybody who's watching this and staying in touch in the future.
All right, great. Okay, take care. Talk to you soon, Greg.
Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.